Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to be with you this morning, and I'd like to give you in 15 minutes some of my experience of what I experienced last summer in the United States. And I'd like to thank LRM for the kind invitation for this morning. The idea is to have a look at this very rapidly evolving sector in the United States, but in China as well, but I will concentrate in the United States. You probably remember this video from a few years ago. It was in 2016, the first time that actually Google showed a kind of robotaxi. But what's interesting in that video that I often show in the trainings I give about autonomous mobility, this is giving mobility to people who cannot drive. If you look, you see blind people, you see mothers with children, sometimes kind of relatively poor people and so on, you see elderly people and so on. So it gives access to mobility to what we estimate is 30% of the world population that cannot drive for many reasons. And this is quite interesting to see why Google marketed it this way a few years ago, and we'll keep this in mind for the rest. So we'll start our trip in Phoenix, Arizona. This is where many of the first fully autonomous projects started in the United States. We're in Arizona, and actually what I would like to show it is, this is the same car that you've seen in the video, that they still have, of course, but then Google decided to concentrate on the software side of autonomous mobility, because they said, okay, we're not a car manufacturer, this is not the idea. And this is the video footage that I took with my smartphone when I was in Phoenix. So the people from Google, they told me, just go to Phoenix, take a plane, download the app, and just summon a robotaxi. And this is what I did, and this is one of the robotaxi that I booked at that time. And it was quite amazing, because the people there, they were not amazed by what was happening. I was a bit surprised, because it was, okay, as you can see, there's no one on board, we're just on the parking lot of a supermarket, and then I could start my trip just using the app. And I'm on the parking lot then, and then I will go on a main way, and as you can see, it's driving completely autonomously. And this is quite important to see actually that it's live, it's completely live, it's a commercial service in the United States. It's not a pilot phase anymore. And it was very interesting to see to what extent, and you will see I'm kind of very proud of myself. But it was many people are asking, how did you feel actually? Because it was driving very, very rapidly. As you can see, it's like a normal car. You see a Coca-Cola truck and so on. So it was completely integrated in my trip. And I've made a few trips here in Phoenix. As you can see, there's a big difference. And I'm not minimizing the shuttle that we'll be testing here in Terhill. I've been involved in a project with Tech in the Walloon region, and I still believe we need to make a lot of testing and a lot of efforts developing those things. But I can really tell you that's a big difference with what we experience now in the United States. So there was the first test that we had in Phoenix. Then we moved to San Francisco to meet the people from Google. We met some of them in Phoenix as well, because we've seen also the autonomous trucks and the logistics sector developing with partners over there. But then we went to San Francisco, and then there we met one of the director of Waymo, so the Google subsidiary, Cédric Dupont, who is a Belgian guy. He lives in San Francisco for 25 years now. He's worked for Google Maps and so on, but he studied at UC Louvain, and it was a very interesting contact. And maybe we will hear him afterwards. So we are in San Francisco. It looks like the lane or tech depot, like you would see normally buses. No, this is only robotaxi. You have more than hundreds of robotaxis. This is 10 minutes drive, 10 minutes ride from the city center of San Francisco. And this is quite amazing, because you see a lot of cars, but many more are on the road every day, and they're testing now in San Francisco, in Phoenix, in Los Angeles, and we'll talk about Cruise, the GM subsidiary, afterwards. So we're in the Waymo, fifth generation of the Waymo car in San Francisco. This is Cédric I just mentioned. At that time, they still had a safety driver on board, so you can see that he may not touch the steering wheel, but the system was working completely autonomously. But the people from Google that you see here, they can already use it as a robotaxi service with no one on board, because they are part from Google, and so they don't have to have the government permit to use it. The regulation allows them to use the robotaxi as they want. So there was the first experience. We had a lot of discussion with them to understand, and based on what we just heard in the previous presentation, they're saying no technology focus anymore. The technology is ready. They're all saying the technology is not a problem anymore. The problem is human perception, operations like people having issues within the car and so on. So this is a key element, I think, that for them, and we had the same message from Cruise and from other operators, technology is not the problem anymore. But or are we going to develop and or are we going to accept the robo-taxi revolution in our cities? And this is a key element. So I don't know if we're going to have the sound. It's not starting.
So driving today is not as safe as it could be. There's about 50 million injury accidents every year in the world, and 1.3 million people die every year. And when you look at the root cause of these accidents, in 94% of the time, the critical cause was the human factor. We built a system that was highly assistive, meaning something that you would use on the highway, so you could, take your hands off the steering wheel and relax a little bit. But the expectation was that you stay in control of the vehicle. What we observed is that users very quickly became so comfortable with the system that they would do things like putting makeup on or texting or even taking a nap. In 2013, we made the decision to switch to full autonomy, just focus on that as our objective.
So I will skip this. Very important message that he's saying. Cédric has been involved in the autonomous mobility for Google for more than 10 years. This is 10 years ago that they decided to go to full autonomy, compared to Tesla, who is still believing that we can have level 3 and so on, like other car manufacturers and so on. Google decided 10 years ago that they will go to level 4, which is full autonomy. You can even put a kid in the car, because they realize it's impossible for a human to be in between. And this is what you were saying here. This is the level 4 technology of Google. So they can anticipate any situation. So they can, at the same time, they have a clear view on everything 300 meters around the car. They know every movement on anything. It can be a truck, it can be a cyclist, it can be anything, as we can see. This is based on 3 technologies: cameras, lidars, and radars. But this is how they can really perceive the surrounding environment and take the right decision. And Cédric, that you've just seen, is director for the perception layer at Waymo, and a very interesting guy that I hope we can bring to Europe very soon. As humans, we directly see the difference between those two situations. Actually, we see that she's talking to the guy. She might cross the road, but she's still talking to that person. And at a very specific moment, she will decide to cross the road. As humans, we only need a few milliseconds to detect the difference. It's very hard for artificial intelligence to see the difference. They could not in the past, but now they can. I would like you to really concentrate on the next image. It's a bit dark, but this is not this one, the next one. This is what I would call the segment approach. They analyze anything on the public space, like boxes first. They see that there are kids, there are adults and so on. They see vehicles and so on. But what's more interesting, you see the Waymo car in San Francisco. You see that those ghosts, they are people. You see those people, but you see 30 of them quite far. The car knows everything, knows if it's a kid, if it's a running kid, if it's a person in a wheelchair. They can really anticipate. And now the light goes green, and the car knows exactly what's happening. They know they have all the information to make the right decision. And you see there are a lot of people. One guy who might cross the road, but the car knows he will not cross the road, because as humans we cannot perceive that he's actually somehow braking or is going a bit slowly. But the car detects this because it's analyzing every segment of our body. So they detect, like they can have 500 people at the same time, and they detect everything. And this makes a big difference with what we experience so far in Europe, because we don't have a technology that is so advanced. So this is Waymo. They're already in a commercial service in Phoenix. They're starting the commercial service in San Francisco. And I received the newsletter this morning when arriving. They will start not a commercial service, but a trusted testers program in Los Angeles in the coming weeks. So they're expanding quite rapidly. But the mayor said patience. They've been very patient. It dates back from 2013, they took the decision. And we are now 10 years later, and they're expanding now, finally, quite fast. But they had to be very patient. But we really see that they are scaling up their development. Other company, General Motors subsidiary, Cruise, very advanced as well. A very interesting case because they're using those small cars as well, but they're developing other types of vehicles at the same time. So they're operating in a quite large area in San Francisco. This is not updated because actually the area is larger, and you see those cars. They're also operating in Phoenix and Austin in Texas. They've been doing quite a lot of delivery, especially during COVID, to test their cars and so on. So the system is working, exactly the same. The system is working. They have some problems sometimes. So yesterday, a car went into the back of a bus in San Francisco. We don't know exactly the reason. And this is again my video footage. This is 3 a.m. in the night. We were just discussing with the people from Cruise, and then my colleague, he started to stop the car, as you can see, and the car, it was, okay, you're a nice guy, but get back to the sidewalk. And you see they're experiencing this every night. So it's a bit dark, but you see those guys, probably a bit drunk, like we were. Actually, they have this every night, but the car is managing it pretty well. And these images are very interesting because it shows the artificial intelligence. We ordered an Uber to go back to our hotel, and 2 robot taxis came at that time. And they were like, okay, this car has flashing lights, so we'd like to overtake the car, but the light is still red, and so the car is hesitating. And you will say, no, the light will go green, and then the first car knows what to do because it analyzed the situation, but the second knows exactly what to do because based on the perception of the first one, they've been communicating with each other, and they just go further and so on. So this case was really, really unbelievable because I've been studying autonomous mobility for many years. I wouldn't expect that they would be so far, actually, that the artificial intelligence would be so advanced. So if we look at Cruise, so they are active in part of the city in a commercial service. There is a long, very long wait list for people who want to test it because many people would like to test it. But for the moment, they're only operating at nighttime. But they're starting in Phoenix and, as I said, and in Austin as well. They say that they need a few weeks to deploy in a new city. And this is why I've been talking about patience. It's a question of weeks. And Cedric was in Brussels in June when I met him first before going to the United States. And he said, I need 2 weeks to get a digital twin of Brussels. 2 weeks. I will bring 150 cars and I have the digital twin of Brussels in 2 weeks. And it gives you the difference between what we experienced so far in Europe and what they're developing in China and in the United States. And this is why I think we need to wake up. And I thank you, Tim, for this great event because this is the idea. So if we look at the different development scenarios of autonomous mobility, we have multimodal and shared transport, like the shuttles. We have highway automated vehicles, like Mercedes, like we could call Tesla, and other car manufacturers are developing those things. We have the robotaxi developing. We have what doesn't exist yet, personal luxury mobility. This is the car that would take you to the Alps to go skiing and so on, and would drive by itself for 700 kilometers. And we have what's going to be presented just after me. This is what I would call autonomous delivery pods, or the delivery vehicles that can be used that are being used in an autonomous mode, and also the robot tracks. So if we concentrate on this specific scenario, the one that I just showed, this is somehow the mobility as a service scenario. This is, you just take the app, you order a car, and it is going to take you to the final destination. What experts say internationally, they say if you look at passenger cars, L4 robotaxi in urban areas, it's tomorrow. We see that most experts say, especially in Europe, it's going to come in the coming years. So we need to prepare ourselves to that. And we need not to to think in terms of technology, but to think in terms of operations on impacts in our city, because they can be very positive impacts, but also very negative impacts on the autonomous mobility. We really have to think all together about those things. What do the Belgian experts believe? Because I had a small mission for the federal minister in Belgium. Many believe that level 4 in the city will come somewhere between before 2030 or a bit later, but it will come anyway. So I have 1 minute to make the conclusion. This is the map. You don't see many things. Just look at the green spots. These are all the robotaxi operated by Cruise at night. So you see, it's not a pilot phase anymore. It makes a big difference with what we experience here. You see that there are dozens of robotaxi operating every night in San Francisco. And if you know San Francisco...
Trade my car for a self-driving car and it costs me the same monthly, I would definitely consider it.
This is important.
This testimony shows that the people...
We don't care about that. This is just a lady that we met in the streets of San Francisco and asking, what do you think about those robotaxis? And she was saying, I don't want to pay anymore for parking. I don't want to buy a car anymore. I really believe that in the future I will travel with those robotaxis, and she would be ready to swap her car for a robotaxi service, as you can see. These are quite recent statistics. You see that Waymo, they have like 300 cars. Most of them are in Phoenix. They have a bit more than 100 in Phoenix. The rest is in San Francisco, in other cities. You see that Cruise, they even have 700. And they have a lot of drivers as well. I just read this morning as well that Apple just hired 200 safety drivers to start operating robotaxi. We don't know exactly where, probably next to Cupertino or something like that, but it will come. We see many things are happening. As you can see, Amazon subsidiary Zoox is starting with these vehicles. We have Motional, who's made a big partnership with Uber. We have Baidu that just got the government permit this week to operate fully driverless vehicles in Beijing. So it's really accelerating. It's not perfect. San Francisco is getting cold feet about self-driving car. This is something important. So they say in China they need 20 days to deploy autonomous mobility in a city, and the vice president of Cruise is saying the same. So it took us 7 years to get one fully driverless vehicle in San Francisco, but now it's a question of weeks to deploy and do things. We'll see. I'm not sure about that. So if you want to get more information, we made some videos, and I'm missing some information, so maybe that's not the last version. I don't know what's happened. Doesn't matter. I just want to talk about, very shortly, if I may, this summer we'll go back to the United States, and we would like to go with an international delegation. So if you're interested, we'll be in San Francisco from 16 to 22nd of August. I don't know what's happening. This is something that we're organizing with ITS Belgium. So the idea will be to be like 15, maybe 20 people going to the United States. I have very close contact with the people from Cruise, from Waymo. I'm trying to get contact with the people from Amazon, from Zoox. And I think it's very, very important that we go with the Belgian international delegation to see what's happening. So if you're interested, please come to me because we are organizing this for the moment. So it's going to be mid-August from 16th to 22nd of August, going back to San Francisco, and we'll have a lot of meetings with the people from those mobility service providers, but also from the public transport operators, from the local authorities, from academics, and so on. So we are organizing quite a big thing. So if you're interested, please come to me, and we could go all together. Thank you for the organization. I wish you a great day.
Thank you, Xavier, for these amazing insights. If I weren't having a baby over summer, then I would definitely join your trip. So none of you have a valid excuse not to go, I would say. I think we have room for 1 or 2 questions. Yes, I see Tim has one.
Xavier, thanks a lot for this very impressive presentation. My name is Tim Asperges. I'm the advisor on mobility for the city of Leuven. And also the city of Leuven is preparing different projects on autonomous driving. But my question is mainly what I've seen in your presentation is a huge amount of robotaxi and also companies that are really investing and have a business case in robotaxi. And your last slide was a slide with an enormous amount of dots of robotaxis. But how do you see the balance between the amount of autonomous cars, robotaxis, and the business case for autonomous buses? Because when we speak about urban transport, we do have main access with an enormous demand of trips, which is impossible to take over by robotaxis. And what I see is that all the companies, they have the business case that they have to sell as much as possible cars and robotaxis, but they don't have a business case in selling autonomous buses.
Yes, you're fully right, and I'm missing some of the videos because I wanted to show how Google or Waymo and Cruise are changing. They don't want to operate robotaxis. They want to operate shuttles because they strongly believe that there's room for 5-6 passengers per trip, and that they really want to make a shared transport system. This is their vision. But even though it's not enough, and so this is why I believe we need to work all together to see what could be the future of autonomous mobility, because it's a problem of capacity. And I don't know how the future will look like, but I'm sure it will be somehow disrupted, because either they succeed. I'm not sure they will succeed, and they're not saying they will succeed. To be honest, they're quite transparent. They know it's not a technology problem, it's an operational problem. If they succeed, it's going to be a big mess. If they don't succeed, it's going to be a big mess. In any case, it's going to be a mess, to be honest. If we're really concentrating on only the robotaxi services, because it's a question of capacity. And let's imagine, okay, you want to go to a very small village in the Flemish or Walloon region. Okay, great. But can you imagine that a robotaxi will come to take you? Just the one of you in this very small village. We've seen over the time that all shared mobility services were only present in cities where you have a density. Because there's a arithmetic problem of operating fleet. This is the same problem that the Lane Tech and Stib have. And so they will concentrate, and this is their aim, they will concentrate on cities. And so they will generate a very big competition with existing actors, and I don't believe this will completely help the business, the mobility sector. So we have to be very cautious with what's happening. But it's coming very rapidly. So this is why we need to wake up somehow.